Former Cajuns DeBarge and Langevin lead the Sun Belt in the Major League Baseball draft. It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. Today's episode, once again, brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We'll get back to the football previewing of the previews for tomorrow's episode, but we have the Major League Baseball draft was on Sunday and Monday, and a couple of Cajuns were the first two guys picked. I don't think that surprises anybody. Kyle DeBarge was a Sun Belt Player of the Year, consensus All-American at short, set a Cajuns record with 21 home runs, and was Mr. Clutch. LP Langevin was the Sun Belt Pitcher of the Year, really spectacular through about the first, let's see here, March, April, probably 2.5 months, and then tired a little bit, but still spectacular overall. And those were the two first guys. We'll go over everybody, of course, that was drafted. I counted 10. I'll admit it. If I checked it twice. If I missed, let me know. I just went through the list. I thought about trying to follow everybody on Twitter, but I just went to MLB.com and did the list. I think I got them all. You just can't say enough about Kyle DeBarge. Outside of the fact that he got off to a slow start, he claims, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with this, he was hitting a lot of atom balls, hitting the balls hard. I don't happen to think that was the case, but nonetheless, he did get off the schneid. I think he started out like 4 for 24. And then he swung and missed at a bad either changeup or breaking ball. It was way out in front. And he told us, he remembered this. I talked to him, I think in between the Sun Belt Conference tournament and the NCAA tournament, that he's like, I remember I told you guys I swung and missed, and that got me going. That got my hands to stay back, not to chase. And he hit a home run on the next pitch, and he was off to the races. And then he had about a 2-3 week stretch where he just kept on coming up clutch and clutch and clutch. And they just would not stop pitching to him. I mean, Southern Miss did it in back-to-back ball games. Southern Miss could have very well swept that series, and yet the Cajuns could have swept that series, right? It was 2-0. Debo hadn't done anything, and I'm coming back from, I think high school softball, and listening to the voice of the Cajuns, Jay Walker, say, I don't care what's going on in this game. I'm not pitching to Debo. And, of course, he's rooting for the Cajuns. He's rooting for Kyle DeBarge. He's like, don't pitch to DeBarge. Boom, home run. 3-run jack. I mean, and I'm with him. Just wouldn't have done it. The next day, they do it again. Hits a 2-run base hit up the middle. Now, Southern Miss won that ball game. Cajuns come back to win on Sunday to take the series. And then Coastal Carolina did it. And then Georgia Southern did it. And it just happened throughout the year. There was a great home run. I was actually on the way, I'm pretty sure it was to Sun Belt basketball championships in Pensacola. And I'm not sure if it was, I guess, Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember, but it was Tulane. They were going to lose to Tulane. They're going to lose it. And a couple of batters before, the catcher drops the third strike. And the batter reached, I don't remember who the batter was. I believe Trey LaFleur got a base hit the other way, maybe in the hole at short. And then DeBarge came up and hit a home run. And, I couldn't, that to me immediately, people older than I am would know who Mickey Owen is, but Mickey Owen dropped the third strike of a World Series game for the Dodgers, and the Yankees came back not only to win that ball game, but to win the World Series, and that's known as the Mickey Owen game, and that's exactly what Kyle DeBarge had. He was outstanding this season. He's going to hear about his size. He's heard about it all. It's like having an awkward name. He's a little dude, short, stocky, 5'9", $170, $175. I don't think he can get that much bigger, right? He does not have a slight frame. He is put together pretty well. Now, is it ironic or coincidence? He's selected by the Twins, and the guys talking about the draft on Sunday after he was picked was saying that they think he's going to stay at short. The problem with that theory is that Carlos Correa just signed like a 6-year, $200 million contract. Now, the irony about that, coincidence, probably, maybe coincidence, maybe neither, that another former shortstop that played baseball in Louisiana was selected, in this case, second, and he moved to third base, Alex Bregman. All right, and he was an All-American shortstop. But Correa was much younger at that point in time, so they kept Correa there because he was an established major leaguer and, pretty good shortstop. And so Bregman went to third and has remained at third. Would there be a chance that Debo gets to the big leagues in 2 or 3 years, or maybe sooner, and Correa ends up going to third base? Now he's only got to cover, doesn't have to go to his right, only has to go to his left. I don't know if that's a possibility. That's way down the line. But it would be interesting if Correa moved, or it'd be the same thing if Debo gets up there, they can't keep him down. And I don't know anything about the Twins. I'd first admit that. Does he move to second? Does he go to third? I have no idea. Debo, that is. So I found that interesting because I knew Carlos signed like a 1-year deal with the Twins and then signed a long-term extension before the season. Also being selected by, DeBarge was selected between the first and second rounds. JP Langevin was selected 101st by the Royals. LP Langevin, Canadian, 6-1 overall, had 7 saves, only 40 hits in 62 2/3 innings. He struck out 106 batters, the only pitcher in the Sun Belt to strike out 106 batters, and he started 3 ball games. That's pretty good. 33 walks. He got 31. I guess that's strikeout caught looking. Wow. Batting average against was 220. Or no, I'm sorry. Batting average against was 177. Did hit 10 batters, but I mean, just an outstanding season from the Cajuns. Started. That's basically when the Cajuns season turned around. If you want to know when it was, he started in the rotation and then just didn't pitch very well at Arkansas State. And then I don't think he pitched very much. He may have come back later in that series. Could look at that. But then they put him in the bullpen, and then the Cajuns went on to win 16 in a row. So that was, he didn't pitch as much as I think they would have liked. I think they wanted him to pitch like twice a week, if not twice a weekend. And there was a couple of times he did, and he just didn't have the stuff. He wasn't not accustomed to that, and he just didn't have the stuff. I think he did it at Troy. Like he saved Friday's game at Troy, and then he came back on Sunday's game and kind of muscled his way through it, if you will. All right, kind of survived. And I think he tried to do it at no, let's reverse that. He did it at Texas State, and then I think he struggled at Troy. So, and I do think he got a little bit tired, a little issues with the heat, Canadian, playing in the Louisiana heat. Although I think that's a little bit overblown. I think throwing in the heat's a little bit overblown. You got to get used to the heat. And it was gradual. It was gradual. It didn't just all of a sudden go from like 50 to 95. So he should have been used to it. But I do think he racked up a lot of innings that he wasn't quite used to. But he was still dominating, just dominating. So the Cajuns had the first 2 guys out of the Sun Belt picked. We'll come back and we'll talk about the other 8 that were selected in the Major League Baseball draft. I mean, the Sun Belt had 10 guys picked in the draft. That is pretty good. Again, if I'm wrong, please let me know, and I'm sure you guys will. I will do that right after I tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all of the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Some of these names were very familiar to me. Others, not so much. Trying to keep up with almost everybody. Some are great names, like the next player taken may have been the best name in the conference. The Marlins, with the 122nd pick out of JMU, picked up Fenwick Trimble. All right. I would tell you, you always have to be concerned with guys with two last names or sometimes two first names. But he had a fantastic year. You know, he was one of those guys that very well could have been, you know, the player of the year. He hit 369, 14 home runs. He had a phenomenal year, drove in 65, had 71 base hits. He had a fabulous year, right? JMU sort of faded towards the end of the year, and, you know, tough to come, you know, again, the guy who's usually the guy who wins MVP, at least in conferences, not necessarily Major League Baseball, but usually that's the case as well, is the best player on the best team. And in this case, in the Sun Belt, it was DeBarge for the Cajuns. That does not take away for the season that Fenwick Trimble had for, excuse me, that's why we have this. Fenwick Trimble had for JMU. So good luck with him with the Marlins. Out of Coastal Carolina, Sam Antonacci picked 140th by the White Sox. Again, Antonacci and that powerful Coastal lineup had another fantastic year. Just a tough out. Just, you know, someone who really patient at the plate, can foul off pitches that he doesn't want to hit, but he's protecting the plate because it may or may not be the strike. And another one of those guys that can, you know, slap it down the left field line or pull it down the right field line. He's an outstanding player. And a lot of these guys may move up quickly. We'll see how that goes. All right. Also, drafted. So that's 4. See, this is one of those guys that I'm not familiar with. John Holobet's ODU right-hander, I believe, selected by Milwaukee with 156th pick. Kind of a reliever. He can put on a little bit slender, like 6'3", 195. But he had a good season. He was 11th in the conference in ERA, 4.31. Had almost a handful of starts with 4, though he did have 5 losses. Less hits than innings pitched. That's outstanding. Struck out 52 and 62 thirds innings and only walked 20. I'm not sure what's going on. I apologize. So he was also mostly a reliever. So did make a few starts for ODU, maybe pressed into service. And we'll wish him the best of luck as well, following in, you know, someone like Justin Verlander's steps. Coastal Carolina also had Derek Bender selected. He will be teammates with Kyle DeBarge. Bender, again, part of that, you know, Coastal Carolina lineup. They were just mashers all through that lineup. And just so tough to get out. Going back to Antonacci, like 367. Not a powerful guy with only 6 home runs, but 47 runs batted in. But he had 90 runs and 83 base hits. He was tough, as so many of those guys were. Bender hit 320 with 11 bombs and 63 runs batted in. He had 74 hits and 50 runs scored. So Derek Bender, selected by the Twins out of Coastal Carolina. Will Turner, South Alabama, taken by Boston. Did I get that right? Hold on a second. No. Let me make sure I got that right. It looks like I got that right. So Will Turner, taken by Boston. I did not write down the round. I think it's pick was, what did I say, 202? 207. I think a guy that's dealt with a lot of injuries, kind of in and out of the lineup. He was taken in the 7th round. 207. In the 7th round, outfielder, 4th-year junior, 6'1", 200 pounds, throws left, bats left, has a ton of speed. This is what I'm wondering about, if it's the same team that I write it down right, because his buddy, Joseph Sullivan, was actually taken by Houston. See, I wrote that down wrong. I wrote it down. I typed it in that Joseph Sullivan was taken by Boston. That's why I was confused. Joseph Sullivan out of South Alabama, his teammate, taken by the Astros to the 223rd pick. Also, throws left, bats left. I think the grandson of the Auburn Heisman Trophy winner. Side note. And then Giants out of Southern Miss took Nico Mazza, one of the better pitchers for Southern Miss. And then the Dodgers took Cole Myers with the 280th pick. And that wraps it up for the Sun Belt draftees. Again, that's 10. That's a pretty good, DeBarge, Langevin, Trimble, Antonacci, Holobetz, Bender, Turner, Sullivan, Mazza, and Cole Myers. That's a solid draft for the Sun Belt. I think there's more rounds later today, but those were the guys that were taken in the first 10. All right. So we had a couple of Sun Belt guys. One was already on the committee and got promoted, and another one got named to a committee that can only help out the Sun Belt. We will talk about that when we come back after this. Trying to clear that frog out of my throat. Okay. It is Sun Belt. I said Sun Belt again. I started with Sun Belt again. It is SEC Media Week. Be sure to stay tuned to Chris Gordy. He is all over. Does a great job with a Locked On SEC. So if you're interested in that, you're certainly welcome to follow him. And he'll get a lot of players, a lot of coaches. Also does it like during the year, because a lot of teams, a lot of coaches and awards are done in Houston. He went to the Manning camp and talked to the quarterbacks there where he had a chance. He went to Austin to see the Texas celebration coming in. So he is always the best. It says, watch next. Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy is your guy. Also, thanks. We're up to 1,320 subscribers. We're going to probably be closer to 1,400 than 1,500, but we still have a little bit of a shot to get to that 1,500 mark by August 31st. So please subscribe to Locked On Sunbelt, your team, and every day. Okay, a couple of names that were making news the last couple of weeks. Keith Gill, commissioner of the Sun Belt, got promoted Sun Belt Conference Commissioner Keith Gill elected vice chair of NCAA Men's Basketball Committee. He's already been on the committee. Gill is currently serving a 5-year term on the committee, spans from 21-22 season through the 25-26 season, and now he is going to be the vice chair of the committee. If you've watched the NCAA tournament, he tends to be sitting courtside, and you see him because he's usually, the way I see him, he's usually, I don't know why, he's usually at the end of that table at midcourt, which is right next to the coach. So whenever the coach is walking back and forth up the sidelines, you see Keith Gill. Can this get the Sun Belt a second bid? Can he press, hey, we had this team win 28 games in the regular season. They won 1 in the Sun Belt. They got 29, but they lost to the team that eventually won the Sun Belt championship. Can you get them in? All right. That's better than the 8th ACC team or the 7th Big 12 team or the 8th SEC team. All right. Did those teams have better schedules or tougher schedules? Maybe. Okay. I don't have a problem with that, but you got to be 500 if you're going to compete in those conferences. I would rather see those other teams. And I think App State would have won a game. JMU won a game this year. So I think App State would have been a tough out if they had a chance to get into the NCAA tournament. So we will see if that will have any effect on getting a second bid in for the Sun Belt. Also making news, the Cajuns' Brian Maggard. Now, he was named to this. Louisiana Vice President for Intercollegiate Athletics, Dr. Brian Maggard, has been appointed to the NCAA Division I Football Bowl Subdivision Oversight Committee. All right, that began on July 1st and runs through June 30th, 2028. He will serve as the Sun Belt Conference representative on the committee. The Football Oversight Committee, comprised of representatives from each divisional subgroup that sponsors football, works in conjunction with appropriate governance entities to provide solutions to issues impacting health and safety for football student athletes. Okay, that's fine and dandy, but it also does this. The committee maintains appropriate oversight of football for both the Football Bowl subdivision and the Football Championships subdivision, and enhances the development of the sport by advancing recommendations related to regular season and postseason football. Doc, when we go into 16 teams? Doc, when is the first round going to be on campus? Doc. Well, that's for football. I was going to say, don't expand the NCAA tournament, but he's not on that committee. Keith, don't expand the NCAA tournament. So we'll see. That's pretty lofty stuff for the Sun Belt guys. Well deserved. Obviously, Keith Gill has done a fantastic job with the baseball conference. Just finished like 4th toughest in the nation. That's outstanding. And we'll see, if things go right. And it's a little bit of a long shot, right? App State's not exactly going to be favored walking into Clemson. Texas State could be favored hosting Arizona State, but that's after UTSA. And App State's got to play East Carolina the next week. And then like week 5, I think, is Liberty. So they have the schedule. I mean, and then again, the more these teams go undefeated, the more they, make a name for themselves, because if you get Texas State beating UTSA, and I think that's in week 2, and somehow App State takes down Clemson in week 2, you're going to start getting a lot of Sun Belt buzz, because there's 12 teams and someone from that group of 5 is getting in. And then that App State Liberty game will be absolutely huge. And then you get, if somehow they're both undefeated heading into the Sun Belt Championship, basically you're probably going to get, the Sun Belt champion could very well be with the representative in the 12-team playoff. Okay, we are going to try and make it all the way home from Louisville to Lafayette tomorrow. If I'm so lucky, we will have we'll try to put together a podcast, an episode for Wednesday. We'll see if that happens. I drove pretty good on the way here. I could have made it. I'm now traveling with the sun instead of against the sun. And the time is with me as well. That doesn't mean I'll be able to keep my eyes open anymore. than I did on the way here. So still a long way home. It's a 12 and a half hour ride. And it is all of that. And I have a small bladder, and I will need to take a nap somewhere along the way. But I only took one nap. I stopped more than a couple of times. We'll post this. It'll be a little bit later than I usually did. Having a tough time finding good Wi-Fi here. And we will upload it from the U of L, as it turns out. Is that ironic? That's ironic. Not a coincidence. Or maybe it's nothing. University of Louisville Library. That's where I found Wi-Fi today. So I was able to post Monday's episode featuring South Alabama. All right, so we'll get this in there, and we'll try and get another episode up on for a Wednesday, as long as I'm somewhat semi-conscious. And then we can pack all day Wednesday, and then the movers are coming Thursday. So movers come Thursday. I'll do a video on Thursday for Friday, and then we'll see what happens on the weekend. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Blabbed a little bit there too much. So there is a change. I am moving. We could talk about that another time, but we're going to keep on doing this. We're going to keep on doing Locked On Sunbelt and cover this, this football conference and the rest of it, because it is going to be, I think it's going to be a heck of a football season. And I'm really interested to see who can step up, who are the surprises. I'm going to try and do ULM tomorrow in terms of previewing, because I think that's going to be a team that is going to be, they're going to be a tough beat. They're going to surprise some teams. I still think it's going to be a struggle trying to get to 3 or 4 wins. But I also think teams are going to know that they played ULM. And it's not going to be as easy as it has been in years past. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. I'm your host. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll hopefully talk to you again tomorrow.